Hey guys, welcome to the Son of Wonder. Today we'll be reviewing Andor Episode 8. Let's conversationalize. Alright guys, so Andor Episode 8 has dropped. And I thought it was a better episode than the ones preceding it. Obviously, if you guys have watched my previous reviews, you know I'm not a fan of this show at all. Just the choices they've made, the choices they've had the characters make, they've written the characters to make in this series, I've just not been a fan of. And so that's kind of soured me on the whole thing. Episode 6 was the main episode where I was like, really? You just had to do all the stuff you did? So, not a fan of this series, and even though this episode was better, it still does not win me over on the series and make me think it's a positive. I'm not a fan. I did appreciate that stuff happened in this episode. I thought the stuff that happened was fairly interesting. The problem is it should have happened like 5 episodes ago. For instance, Karn finally meeting Lieutenant Muro. They've had the same goals and ideals like this whole series, and they're only just now meeting in the 5th to last episode of the series. And it makes you wonder, if that was what they were leading up to, then why did they have all those scenes where Karn was talking to his mother? Those pointless scenes where they're talking about Karn's uncle and him going to get that job, and then he gets the job, and then he gets contacted by the Imperial Security Bureau. You could have had that 15 episodes ago, but no, you decided to pan on Karn 5 times, going, like that, just like that, word for word like that. No, not cool. And him talking to his mother about pointless stuff. Hey, you have an uncle? Yes, you have an uncle. Hey, you know what? Your uncle's really successful. You know what? You're not. You're not successful. You know what? Your uncle's successful, so he can make you successful if you want to be successful. You're wearing brown. That's bad. You don't need to wear brown. You need to wear something else that's not brown. Brown is bad. Every other color is good, but brown is bad. Pointlessness. You could have had episode 4, him get fired. Episode 5, could have had that episode with his mother. He can spend it with his mother. Sure. Establish some character there. Episode 6, he gets contacted by the Imperial Security Bureau. You don't need him talking about the job. You don't need him trying to get one. He goes home. He doesn't know what to do. Then you have him be contacted by the Imperial Security Bureau so Muro can find out what she needs to find out. Done. End of story. Show's over. Okay, the show wouldn't actually end, but you know what I'm saying. And then we could avoid that awful Blade Runner parody of a suit and tie that they put Karn and all the other employees of that job in. I'm like, oh my gosh, are we that desperate to act like the real world now in Star Wars? You might as well make the Earth canon. But yeah, he finally meets Muro and explains what the situation was with Ferrix, what really happened, because the stuff that the previous guy in charge of that sector that Ferrix was in, Lieutenant Blevin, his report did not have the right details in it, and Muro had a hunch that that was the case. Karn was like, yeah, they didn't have the right details in it. He gave the right ones. And once Muro was done with him, she was like, okay, thank you for your service. You can go home now. Karn begs her to, I want to join the Empire. I want to help you. I want to help you fight Andor. Really, he just wants revenge. He just wants revenge on Andor for making him lose his job in the first place. And she doesn't accept his help. And I thought she would accept his help. It only made sense to me for her to be like, hey, we have the same ideals. We have the same goals. We both want peace and order and justice in the galaxy. Why don't we team up? But she just kind of rejects him. She's like, just go home and act like this never happened. And it was just weird because it seemed like that whole thing of him getting the job in the first place was seeming to lead up to him joining with Muro and being a part of the Empire. But now what? We are in the latter half of the season, and barely anything has happened with his character. That is terrible, terrible, terrible writing. Meanwhile, you've got Mon Mothma, who's having a never-ending party which is hilarious because like literally everybody's wearing the exact same thing they were in the last episode, but it's as if that are having like a new party. So I don't know how many parties this woman has, but she likes to partay. Ain't no parlay, it's partay with her. And she seems to be wearing the same dress too. I don't know, but her, the guy she was trying to recruit in the last episode, Tay, walks in and starts talking to Mon Mothma about the money and the fact that he's not having trouble being able to hide it, and he doesn't know how all that's going to go down. Then later she's talking to Perrin, and she's like, well, where's Tay? And it seems like maybe this is another party or the same party. I guess it's the same party. The passage of time is weird because when Cassian Andor is in his prison, that says like, it starts out with him on his first day in prison, and then it says 30 shifts later. His shifts of work that he does in prison. And the shifts last 12 hours, they said. 12 hours apiece. So if it's 30 shifts later, and you sleep for the other 12 hours, I would assume that's 30 days. Well, we don't know how that relates to Mon Mothma, or where her party is, or when it's happening. So I need more context. Like I've needed a lot more in this show with so many other areas. You've got Marva on Ferrix. Marva is trying to be a rebel, but she is having some pretty severe health problems. But she doesn't want to leave because she wants to stay in the town that, Andor was at and has been the main center of attention in Ferrix for the audience. She doesn't want to leave because she wants to stay there and be a rebel against the Empire and rebel against the Empire. So the girl that Andor was being friends with in the previous episode, Bix, and then his construction friend who caused the corporate security ship to crash in episode 3 are talking about Marva. And the dude's like, well, we could take her to the Daughters of Ferrix. They might have a warm room for her, which I don't know what Daughters of Ferrix is. I don't know if it's a club, but he said that Marva used to be president of that, I guess, club. But Bix is like, no, she doesn't want to accept it. Like we've already offered that. Marva says she wants to stay in the town. Meanwhile, Cinta and Vel are spying on them to see where Andor is, but they realize that he's not there. And Cinta decides to stay in the town to just stay there in case they find out any whereabouts of Andor, where he is. He's in prison, but only we know that. And Vel leaves. And also, Cinta somehow got off Aldhani. We see her riding a speeder in the last episode, seeing a Star Destroyer and riding a speeder. And now she's on a completely different planet. So, let me get this straight. There was a Star Destroyer flying above her head in the last episode. She sees this. She gets out a speeder. She speeds somewhere. And now she's on a completely different planet in a completely different system when there should have been, since there was a Star Destroyer in the last episode, there should have been a blockade over Aldhani, considering what happened at the garrison being robbed, and everybody freaking out about it across the galaxy. You'd figure it would be a lot harder to leave Aldhani if there's a blockade over it, which there should be. And if there's not, that's a problem, because the Empire would have totally blockaded that place if they hadn't already. So it's not like they're just going to let any ship leave the planet. They're going to check their credentials. They're going to check their ID. And unless Cinta's got really, really good undercover ID, then she's not going to be able to go. Also, they would let no one leave the planet. If you see Star Wars Rebels and you see some of the other Star Wars projects, the Empire always, when something happens, they always blockade the planet, and they are strict. They don't let anybody leave if a rebel activity is there. They don't let anybody leave, and they don't let anybody come to the planet. They are hardcore. They blockade everything. How the heck did Cinta get to Ferrix? It's one of my main questions of the whole episode. How did Cinta get to Ferrix? You know what would have been great? Is in the last episode, instead of seeing her look at a Star Destroyer and ride a speeder, you know what would have been great? Explaining how she even got a ship to go to Ferrix. Where did the ship come from? But we don't even see her have a ship. Because I didn't think they had a ship. Maybe they do. I guess they would have taken a ship to get to Aldhani in the first place, like all the other rebels with her who all died at the garrison. Okay, sure, maybe. But still, it's again, lo and behold, I need more context. But I hadn't finished about Mon Mothma earlier. Like, Mon Mothma was at the party still, and she's talking to Perrin, like, where's Tay? Where's her recruit guy? And he's like, oh, he left. He said he had an early morning, because the party's at nighttime. And she walks away, and I did like how the actress acted this. Like, she walks away, still smiling to the other guests, and then her expression slowly changes to, like, concern. It slowly changes to, like, fear a little bit. Like, what happened? Like, Tay wouldn't have just left without saying goodbye, so what happened? And this is one of those times where I've said before, I didn't like when they establish something that might happen with Mon Mothma or any of the characters and then not do anything with that in the episode. This was kind of one of those cliffhanger things that actually worked. Like, you see her expression change, and because she doesn't know where Tay is, or if Perrin was telling the truth, because Perrin was kind of looking at her funny when she was walking away, and her husband, Perrin. And so you don't know what happened to Tay. If what Perrin says happened actually happened. So you kind of just leaving it there does leave it kind of ambiguous in a good way. Like, you want to know what happens to Tay, if anything did happen that was bad. I have a feeling the Empire likely got to him. Now, if that is the case, then the problem would be, what, we had like 2 seconds of a political thriller, and now he's already captured by the Empire? Like, the amount of time we could have spent having cool political thriller stuff, but then he's just captured already. 2 seconds. 2 conversations. Done. If that is the case, if that happens in the next episode, that's a problem. Again, another problem. And it's one of those things that is a consistent problem with this series, is they seem so concerned about setting up certain characters and setting up certain plot points that they don't have very big plans for in the future. We're going to set up this character on Aldhani, and this character on Aldhani, and this character on Aldhani, and then they all die. And barely get spoken of afterward. Okay. We're going to set up Mon Mothma having, family troubles with her daughter. Like she's having trouble bonding with her daughter. And then we're going to have 2 little scenes where her daughter's just shy and doesn't want to talk to Tay. Okay. Where's the payoff? Where did the payoff go? It also is like you seeing Luthen being all conspiracy. Yeah, I'm a Den of Antiquities guy, but I'm also a rebel. That was really cool, and to see in episode 4, which again is still by far the best episode of the series. It was really cool to see in episode 4, and then we've barely seen any of that since. Like, this is the first time he's left his shop since episode 4, and we're on episode 8. Anyway, Bix is trying to send a message to Luthen to see where Andor is so she can tell Andor about his mother, Marva. Like, maybe she's dying, the fact that she might be dying, or that she's in very poor health. And Luthen and his assistant girl decide to cut the line to Ferrix. Not contact Ferrix anymore, because it's just too risky, or the assistant girl just feels it's too risky for him to be contacted Ferrix. Like, she doesn't want him to slip up again, like he did before with it when he was recruiting Andor. So yeah, they just feel they don't want to risk it. They don't want to risk the Empire being aware of his operations, because now the Empire actually has an idea of his existence because of what Karn told Miro and what Miro had already deduced. They call him, the code name for this mystery person, which is Luthen, but they don't know it's Luthen. The code name for this mystery person they call is the Axis, which is actually a really cool code name, because it's like he's the center of everything. Like, that's cool. Everything revolves around him. Like, he's the center of what they feel are the wider rebel organization, like rebel operations that are connected, an organized rebellion that is forming in the galaxy. So that is neat. I liked that. And Luthen's also afraid of Andor being out there knowing that Luthen exists. So Luthen might be having some problems later on. Meanwhile, Andor is in prison for doing nothing, like we established before in the last episode. It's a very nice looking prison, at least. They mentioned that in the episode, like it's at least a nice looking prison. Also, oh my gosh, when Andor first gets to the prison, which is it's a factory, the prisoners work in the factory, And when Andor first gets to the prison, I did like the scene where, like, when he first gets there, the Imperial guy is giving the prisoners a rundown of how everything's gonna work. I thought that was a good, like, bad guy being a jerk and like putting down the message of what the prisoners are gonna be doing and that they will do it. That scene I did enjoy, but their shoes, the Imperials' shoes, the shoes that they use to make themselves immune to whatever metal the floor is made of, that they use this like control thing, there's like this button, like when they press it, it causes the prisoners to like gravitate toward the floor and be like crushed by the weight of it pulling them close to the floor. It's a really crazy device. Apparently it's because of the metal of the floor. I don't really know how that works. I kind of wish they would have explained it better. But the shoes that the Imperials have, so it doesn't affect them, they're like Nike Swoosh. Now Nike Swoosh is canon in Star Wars. They're like these hockey snow boot things with like the tongue, and they're like tie shoes, and they have like this tape around them. I'm like, what is the budget for this show? You couldn't have afforded, like, you couldn't have used money to design actual, Star Wars shoes, because then we're in the world of Star Wars. We're in the Star Wars universe, and usually when you're in a specific fictional universe, you like to hold to what has been established in that fictional universe, what kind of things people wear, what kind of things people do, what kind of things, like, what things look like. But now, Nike Swoosh is canon in Star Wars. Those shoes suck. But Andor, they give him the rundown of how things work, of how they build stuff in the factory. We get an actor cameo that I had no idea what... Okay. Continuing. We have an actor cameo that I had no idea was going to happen, but it did, and I freaked out when I saw it, because I was like, hey, it's him! Andy Serkis is in this episode. He's a prisoner himself, and is in charge of all the other prisoners doing the factory work. That's awesome that he's in this episode. His character name in the episode, I believe, is Kino Loy, which, I mean, for Andy Serkis, is kind of a lame character name. I wish they would have given them something a lot cooler. But if you guys didn't know, Andy Serkis is actually the guy who played Snoke in the sequel trilogy. Sorry, that happens every time I mention the sequel trilogy. And of course, in the sequel trilogy, one of the greatest actors of our time, in Andy Serkis, was used to play Snoke, and he did a phenomenal job and was killed in the second movie of the sequel trilogy. Right there, right then and there, right in the middle of the movie. Could have been such a cool character, have such a effect on the wider Star Wars galaxy. One of the best villains. No, he's dead. He just died. Wasted Andy Serkis' talent completely. Use him for a few minutes and then bam. And that's unfortunately a lot of what's happened to him as an actor. He's one of the most underrated actors, I think. And he's one of my favorite actors. Like, his range as Gollum and Caesar from the Planet of the Apes movies, and Snoke, and Ulysses Claw in the Marvel movies, his range is insane. All the different kinds of characters he can play. He's like one of my favorite actors because of that. And he just has a nice charisma on screen. Like, you want to see more of him, no matter what he's in. What's funny is I didn't know he was into doing shows. He may not be. This might be the first show he's acted in. I could be completely oblivious. Maybe he's done a fathillion other shows, but this is the only show I'm aware of that he's acted in. And I had no idea he was going to be in this. Like, of all other Star Wars projects for him to be in, this was not the one I expected him to be in. But he is. And he's like the leader of the factory workers. He's a prisoner who's the leader of the prisoners. That is pretty cool. I do think that if they're going to have Andy Serkis play a second character, it could have been a cooler character. I hope they do more with his character. Hope it's not like, hey, he's kind of mean, so we're going to kill him when we escape. Although, given the track record of this show, that would not be entirely out of the ordinary. But yeah, Andy Serkis is just, his potential, I feel like, has been wasted through so many things. Like, he achieved his potential in Planet of the Apes, as Gollum, and then, like, they just keep killing him off too fast and other stuff. Like, he was Alfred in the new Batman movie, and, you know, kind of sort of spoilers for that movie. He doesn't die, but he was in it for, like, two minutes. Like, a few scenes, and that was it. Why do you keep putting him in such little? Put him in a lot to make him the main, like, one of the main stars of something. Stop putting him in these smaller roles that you only have intention to last so little time, or make his character last longer in the movies. Because he's an awesome actor, and I need people to know that. Please, Andor, do not do it this show. In this show, do not do it this time. He's an awesome actor. Keep him. I beg you, please, keep him. And anyway, once he did appear in the show, my interest in the show, in the episode, was elevated quite a bit. It's like, hey, it's Andy Serkis. I like this episode more just because of the actor, not because of the story. But Luthen finally leaves his den for the first time in forever. If that was terrible, I'm sorry. But he leaves to go see Saw Gerrera. Dreams do come true. We finally got to see Saw Gerrera. And he has a conversation with him, like he's trying to sell Saw Gerrera these, you know, this equipment that Saw Gerrera needs for his rebel activities. But the only way Luthen's going to sell it to him is if Saw teams up with this guy named Anto Krieger, who is going to destroy this Imperial something or other type base. And Luthen wants Saw to help him, to help this guy, Anto Krieger. But Saw doesn't want to at all, because he only works with the, you know, his specific group of rebels, and he doesn't trust anybody else because he feels that everybody else just has these misguided ideals of why they're rebelling against the Empire. He sees that there's all these different factions, and that he just feels they're all lost. Like, they don't have an actual deep, like, right motivation in fighting the Empire. They're just fighting the Empire. They're fighting the Empire for their I guess their own reasons, but apparently reasons that Saw does not agree with. And he just feels that it's just pointless to have all these different people who seem to only care about their idealism and their group, and not like the wider, you know, idea of just bringing down the Empire because it's oppressing the galaxy. Which is kind of funny because that's exactly what Saw kind of has done. Like, his specific cell of rebels, he's, you know, very boxed in with his group. He doesn't let anyone who's anybody be a part of it. And if you try to leave, he has issues with that. And so it's just kind of funny because he's criticizing these other people. I assume maybe just mostly for their idealism rather than like how they actually operate. But, you know, long story short, Saw Gerrera does not accept Luthen's offer because he doesn't want to work with Anto Krieger at all, and he just likes his space. He even asked Luthen, he's like, what are you, Luthen? Like, out of all these factions, like, what are you? I've never really known. And Luthen says, like, I'm a coward. I'm a guy who's afraid that the Empire is going to become too powerful to even stop. Which, that doesn't really mean he's a coward. That just means he wants to do something about it. So... But yeah, so they had the conversation. It just feels like none of the plot has really been moved forward by the conversation. It's like we had a conversation, we talked, and now we're done. And nobody's really agreed on anything, and so nothing has been moved forward. And Andor is in prison. And some of the prisoners are concerned or talking to Andor, because Andor's like a new arrival in the prison. And the other prisoners want to know what it's been like out in the galaxy, like how hard has the Empire actually been hurting down, like pushing down on the galaxy. And Andor says he doesn't know anything, which of course he does know about like the rebel stuff, because they ask him about that too. And they're all like surprised or shocked. Like, I don't really know what that scene was meant to entail, but, you know, it was there. And I guess that scene was meant to, you know, give the other prisoners more characterization and show that, like, they're just as curious to know what's happening in the wider galaxy as anybody is. And even one of the other prisoners ends up killing himself on this, like, the floor turns to, like, it becomes really dangerous when they're asleep at night so they don't escape, like, so they don't walk out. It's actually a very well-designed prison. Like, it'd be very hard to escape, so I'm curious to see how they're going to do it. But yeah, it's like the game we kids play. Like, the floor is lava. Like, almost literally, the floor is lava. They call it, like, hot floor or something like that. Like if you touch it or stand on it, which is what one of the prisoners does on purpose, you die. Because he just can't take being in prison anymore, which makes sense. And on Ferrix, Bix, after she tried to contact Luthen but didn't get anything back, but she was frustrated about that. But the guy's shop that she uses as a cover to go inside and contact Luthen, the guy owning the shop was captured by the Empire and tortured. And somehow the Empire knows about Bix, and the Empire captured Bix and is going to torture her to find out about Andor. Because Miro is there at Ferrix, supervising, trying to get more information about Andor. Because of the stuff that Karn told her and the stuff that she's already figured out. Because she obviously knows what Vel and Cinta know is that, and what I guess Luthen knows, is that Ferrix is the best place to find out information about where Andor is. Because that was where they found him first. Which, you wouldn't really be able to know much about where Andor is, at all. Because of the fact that, I don't think he told anybody where he was going, because he was on that, Florida resort. My mom called it a Florida resort. That's literally what it looked like in the last episode, that vacations beach spot he goes to with that lady in the last episode. It looks like just some kind of resort on Earth, not a Star Wars problem. But then he gets taken to a completely different place, in a completely different prison, in a completely different part of the galaxy. I believe it's called Narkina, I think it was Narkina 5, which is a Star Wars name, so I at least appreciated that as a Star Wars sounding name. But yeah, so I don't think anybody on Ferrix would have any clue where Andor is. So I don't know exactly where that's going to lead. Miro might, really hurt Bix, and then that might, Andor might find out later and want revenge or something like that. I don't know where the show is headed. I've not known for, 5 episodes now. But to end off, one massive plot hole. Massive plot hole. For me. I don't know if any of you guys caught this, but I did, and this is a major plot hole. If the Empire knows what Andor looks like, because Miro pulls up the hologram in front of all the ISB guys in their conference chamber at the beginning of this episode. So all the guys have seen what Andor looks like. And since they know what Andor looks like, and are desperate, they are pushing down hard on Ferrix just to find out where he is, because they know Andor is the key. Even Karn says it, they know Andor is the key to finding the Axis, which is Luthen, codename for Luthen. If they're so concerned about finding Andor, that's all their efforts have been going in this episode have been going toward finding Andor, you would figure throughout all their prisons in all the galaxy, because they know he could be anywhere, you would figure that they would scan the prisoners' faces or have pictures taken of the prisoners just in case Cassian might have, been captured randomly at one random planet and taken to a random Imperial prison. Just maybe. It could happen. Might be a long shot, but it could happen. Oh, wait, it did. So you'd figure that the Empire would, the Imperial prison at Narkina 5, be aware. You figure the ISB would give all Imperials across the galaxy. If that's their top priority, is to find the Axis, and they know Andor can help them find the Axis, then, which is what Luthen's so concerned about, the fact that Andor knows about Luthen. So this is his fear being kind of being realized, so that is good writing. But what's not good writing is the fact that you figure the Empire would send that information and the picture of the hologram of Andor out to everyone in the galaxy. And once the Empire on the Imperial prison at Narkina 5, where Andor is, sees the hologram, they're going to be like, oh, the new arrival we just had, that's Cassian Andor. We need to get him to the ISB so he can tell them where the Axis is. Yet somehow, they're looking for Andor and looking for Andor and looking for Andor, and the Empire has Andor, And they just don't know it, apparently, because they're all idiots. They have apparently no understanding of how trying to find someone works. Usually the first thing that a person does when they're trying to find something is get the word out. Like, you know, when somebody's lost their dog, they'll nail or tape pictures of their dog on like telephone poles and lamp posts and whatnot. You know, that's like the first thing people usually do if they've lost their dog. And you have pictures of people when they're kidnapped, like to help other people find the person who is kidnapped. Like if they see the person because they've seen their face, they know what they look like, so they can call somebody if they've seen their face to come help and get this person who is kidnapped. So you'd figure this galaxy-spanning organization, this tyrannical, evil galaxy-spanning organization, would be smart enough to post a picture on Star Wars Instagram, on Star Wars Facebook, and post a selfie of them going, "Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the gram. I got this hologram of Andor I need you guys to find all throughout the galaxy. I need you guys to search everywhere, every prison. This is who it is. Take a good long look, because I'm going to need you to know that this guy exists and is out there, and you need to find him so we can find the rebellion and end them. Let's be tyrannical. I love you, boys. Peace." Something like that. But no. Apparently the Imperials are all idiots. Imperial idiots we have on our hands. Miro is actually a moron, even though she's been portrayed in the series to be really smart. Apparently, if she is not thought to do that, to show the rest of the Empire across the galaxy Andor's hologram, then she is a buffoon. Imbecilic. But that is my review of Andor Episode 8. Some stuff happened. So, like the Force. But I mean, good grief. It took us like 100 billion hours to get there. They wasted hours upon hours of my life just getting to this kind of mediocre payoffs of certain things. Like Karn got to talk to Miro, but he's not joining her. And Saw Gerrera got to talk to Luthen, but they're not teaming up. So don't know what we're doing. I guess the series is unpredictable. That's the same compliment I gave She-Hulk. Is that the series is unpredictable, but just because it's unpredictable doesn't mean it's good. And just because it's grounded doesn't mean it's good. You get me grounded and have bad writing. So that's essentially what this show is. Like I said in my Black Adam review, yeah, the movie was pretty predictable, yet it was still awesome. Predictably awesome is still awesome, but unpredictably terrible is also still terrible. So, thank you guys for watching. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. Have a very blessed day. Goodbye. That's a wrap.